Last panel with Paul Stewart was phenomenal. Thank you so much. That was great. That was really, really fascinating and very interesting. But we're going to move on to the next panel here, and hopefully we can learn some more cool stuff. So I want to bring up our guests. So if Spiro and Steve and Alison can come on up, and so I can do a little quick introduction here. That would be my intent. Some quick introductions and read some bios here, because we really are very, very blessed to have an amazing panel here once again. So Spiro Tsaparas from M Development, based in Aspen, Colorado. Spiro's in charge of their organization. They're a prominent real estate developer that develops real estate throughout the country. And Spiro's in charge of really execution of everything they do. Execution from construction, design, development. So anybody who works or goes into their buildings or any deals that have to be made, kind of he's in charge. He's the man to actually execute the work at M Development. And this panel kind of representing landlords. So we're going to have a lot of conversations about landlord, tenant, and how that whole process works. Okay. We have Steve Rouman. Did I pronounce it Rouman correct? Like the Empire. Rouman. Oh, like the Empire. Wow, that was spectacular. Okay, so Steve Rouman, Senior Vice President, Real Estate at luxury home furnishing retailer RH. I do not need to say what that used to be. Steve leads strategy, site selection, deal, lease negotiations for all company real estate assets, including retail, distribution, and office. But prior to RH, he had senior positions at some of the most well-known brands worldwide, including Amazon, Apple, Levi Strauss, Gap, and then on the landlord side with JMB Urban Retail in Chicago and Westfield Corporation. So quite an esteemed experience. Steve received a Bachelor's of Arts in Communication from University of Michigan. Go Blue! Yeah! That's one of the 10 reasons why he's up here. Go Blue, baby. Right?
And my mom is a Detroiter.
And your mom's a Detroiter, right? God, we bring some Detroit U of M love here. Member of ICSC, currently he's a member of the Board of Trustees. Lives in Northern California with his family, wife, and 4 kids. So please welcome Steve. Thank you. And Alison Roede, Vice President, Store Planning and Construction for the Americas of Christian Dior. Joined Dior in 2017, but over the past 20 years, right, we're not aging you, a teenager. She started, when she was 6 years old, over the last 20 years. But she had leadership positions at that time too, in store design and planning, J. Crew, and Equinox Fitness. Alison oversees internal store planning and construction team, outsourced project management consultants, and the development of all boutiques, food and beverage, spa projects throughout U.S., Canada, Latin America, and the Caribbean. So you must travel a lot too, okay? She also serves as a member of the management committee for Dior Americas. Alison's creating new product pro formas, so actually on the financial side, kind of see if the finances work. Project due diligence, lease contract review, oversight of all consultants, bid process, procurement, and construction oversight, all the way through opening. Alison was born in Philadelphia and earned her bachelor's at the University of Kentucky, and this is in architecture, and her master's in architecture from University of Pennsylvania, where both of my daughters went. So we got another great college connection here. We love that, right? And I love that you split your time between New York and her mini farm in Rhode Island, where she spends weekends developing her skills as building as a flower farmer. Fallback plan. I'm sure the economics of that are just spectacular. Right? High margin business, or high volume too, I'm sure. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. This is great. We got to remember, everybody's got to talk into the microphone so everybody can hear. Everybody hear okay? Good. Okay. So in the roundtables here, we talked about some of the stuff, but I want to kind of hear from the retailers here, if we can, is bricks and mortar, right? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, everyone talked about retail's dead, brick and mortar's dead, okay? So what's happening in brick and mortar retail today, and what are you guys doing in brick and mortar today in retail? that's maybe different than it was 10 years ago?
I don't think it's necessarily new. I think brick and mortar is here to stay no matter what. And I think right now it is about creating an environment for experience. It is a way to engage new customers, get market share. RH, formerly known as Restoration Hardware, was one of the first brands who really started to bring this to the forefront. Again, when I was a teenager and I was renovating my first apartment in New York, I went to buy my hardware at Restoration Hardware, and it was just like a whole wall of knobs and pulls and things like that. Then all of a sudden, and I don't know how many years, 10 years ago, it became the gallery, as Steve has educated me, it's called the gallery, where you are literally living in a room, and then it went on to add the F&B, the hotel, the full experience. And I would say that is so important right now, capturing a younger audience. He's disappeared from the front, but what we were talking about in the very beginning, younger audience, creating the Instagram moment in the store. Right now we're working on food and beverage, spa. It is all about bringing the experience, supporting omni-channel with your bricks and mortar by creating this kind of experience. So I would say that is not necessarily new because like RH started it, but I think that's what everybody else is sort of going towards right now.
Well, she said it, but I'm actually not sure why you had me on the panel because I'm not actually allowed to say anything. So
wait, what happens
Todd.
at the Harvard Club stays in the Harvard Club, right?
No, thanks for the plug, Allison. No, look, trendsetter. That's what, in all facets of my life. No, I mean, I don't have a job if brick and mortar goes away, but first of all, I fully recognize that my category lends itself pretty well to brick and mortar. It's hard to buy a couch online, but we've obviously taken it to another level, and I don't think we never doubted the significance of it, even when we were our former self. It's just there is no more meaningful way to sell something or to engage with a customer, and people don't realize it because we don't really talk about it, but we have a very robust online business. Almost half of our revenue is derived from online, but our galleries drive so many impressions and engagement. You can't. It's hard to quantify, but we are incredibly devoted to the physical space.
Yeah. So I want to hear, is there anything that's not working? So I said what's working and what's not working. So is there anything that your firm, your brand has done and attempted, and you went, that didn't work? So sometimes you learn a lot more from your, I'll call it misses, than you do from your successes. Is there anything you can think of something that didn't work, that you're willing to share?
I think one thing is, and I don't know if this is for a luxury brand, very, very slow to bring technological improvement into the built environment. So making sure that the customer's experience is seamless from a technology perspective. And again, I think there were other brands. I worked for Coach when the handheld was coming out to check the customer out, 15 years ago. And I think in general, luxury was very slow to adapt technology. I think it's just starting to happen now in store.
It's more of a challenge than a problem, because the average design, we call them design galleries, the average large design gallery without a restaurant sees about 800 people a week. The average design gallery with a restaurant sees about 4,500 people a week. So you can see the traffic is significant. And so that's a good problem to try to figure out.
For Dior, food and beverage, probably on a much smaller scale, cafe, not restaurant, has actually bought us a newer, younger customer. Now, we can offer a woven bracelet to that entry level. It's not a couch. So the food and beverage has actually helped us expand our customer base to a younger client, which we desperately need to keep growing. And it's back to the Paul Stewart story again about trying to bring the younger millennials and Zs and that's a way to do it, because they come to pay for their $12 cappuccino with a CD on top, but then they'll walk out and buy a $200 cotton bracelet when they leave, So it is a way to engage a new customer, but we have that kind of stratified product that we can offer, which I guess, I don't know what that would be. Sheets, maybe? I don't know what it would be at Restoration Hardware.
Maybe we should do that.
A pillowcase.
Yeah, a pillowcase.
All right, so I'm going to switch here, and we're going to really try to open up the hood here, and maybe you guys are willing to share some things, okay? So on the real estate side, because you guys are both real estate, and we got our real estate landlord here who has a lot of real estate around the country. So what are the biggest challenges you're experiencing with the landlord tenant as far as lease terms, lease negotiation, who's responsible for what? I want to stick between the conversation and getting through the process of a tenant saying, or a brand saying, we're interested in that building, landlord saying, we'd love to have you. Now I got to document a deal. Because from the outside, as being a contractor, that seems to be taking a lot longer than it used to take 10 years ago. So Spiro, I'd love to kind of hear maybe from your side what you've seen, experience, and what's working and what's going on out there with the tenant-landlord lease negotiations.
It's perfect.
Okay, great. All right, that was great. I think all the other landlords here agree. Pretty to hear from Taubman. You guys all agree that too.
Well, we don't have a single issue with any of our tenants, and it all works out great. But until it does, and it gets to that point, I think that we're not including the entire team, and the team that is going to execute what the lawyers and the business decision makers made during the deal. They're not including the team that is about to fight that battle, those 10 battles, 100 battles that they have to. And I think we can do a much better job as an industry in including the contractor or two contractors. Because at the end of the day, the contractor ends up being in the middle of this between the landlord and the tenant. And people are not focused on what is supposed to happen and what the mission is, and they're focused on resolving conflict. I think the work letters are worthless 90% of the time. I think no one reads them. I think the PMs from the retailers often are not given the lease, which is a document and the manual of the relationship between landlord and tenant, and they are getting their instructions from their design team. And you will have a brand like LL Bean, who is a completely different approach in design and so on, or a brand like Dior, or RH, which is driven by designers, and the pursuit of perfection within design never stops. Never. The day before opening is like, should we move that fountain?
Yeah, and your point? What's the prop?
Should we move the stair towers?
This happened.
Epic,
It
Todd.
just happened. So that's his project. The tenant he's referring to
I
said,
don't know why he has such a problem with that. It's just a simple stair tower. Just take it down and
No,
rebuild.
all right. We'll talk about
they
that
said,
later.
just turn it 180 degrees. And you guys did. But
So go ahead. I
think,
want to sit down
at
with
the end of the
lease.
at the end of the day is at the lease moment, you guys bring communication in, bring the team, bring the designer, bring the contractor, and don't just leave it up to the lawyers to put about 30 pages of within 10 days of delivery, at the 5-day, you need to give a notice that needs to be FedExed or certified mail, and 20 days after, the landlord, just stop that. Just doesn't work.
But I wrote that.
And no one reads it, or if we are going to have it written, let's just make sure everybody does, and it's in there. Because it's just not right to the people that are working for the companies. We're just wrong about that.
Okay, give them a break. Well, I want to. So what's working on your end as tenants try and negotiate leases? Gets most out of the landlord, have them do all the work.
You mean aside from rent? Are you trying to tell me what the problem is with landlord? Well, here I will just say this. I have prided myself over my career in my ability to build lasting relationships. And it's kind of the cornerstone of who I am. But I also think it is the most over and abused word in our industry, because everybody, you can be in a relationship with lots of people, and a lot of those relationships are bad. So relationship is supposed to have this positive connotation, but it doesn't, it hardly ever does. It's partnership that we strive for, and that's kind of what Spiro's getting at, is that a lease is a lease, right? Some are more complicated than others, some can take longer than others, but I spend an overwhelming amount of my time negotiating the work letter. And I think it's things like what you're talking about, that they're not intended to be gotchas, and they were created by well-meaning people, but it's hard to be in a relationship or partnership when one of the two people in that doesn't know what the document says, right? And I think you and I can know as the principals and the deal makers, but it doesn't filter down. And I think we've learned that the hard way, and it goes all the way down to our contractor partners especially, right? That everybody sort of is in the game from the beginning, and we are chronically bad at that.
Yeah, I just think we just need to take a step back and just be good to the people that are going to fight all those fights. We know how it happens, we know who that is, and I think we're focused to that end result of the lease, and then moving forward and get the financing and all that stuff that happens. And I think we can do a much better job as an industry in general by including all team members into certain moments. And the work letters are hilarious often. And they are part of a contractual agreement of buildings that may be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's ridiculous industry-wide. And I think we can do a much better job of that.
Right, so
I'm
reading your bio again. It says you're responsible for procurement, due diligence, lease and contract review, and pro forma. So how is the whole lease process working for you, and how has it changed? And what, I'll say, secret sauce that you have done that you've said, this really has worked when we do this?
So, we work with a very diverse group of landlords, and it varies wildly, just as every human being in the world is different, like every landlord is different. Even within one company, projects can vary wildly. Some of the toughest landlords are the ones who know exactly what is going on, what's in the landlord work letter. They're hard on you, but in the end, it's easier because everybody knows what's going on. It's harder when it's one of those really big landlords and the information is not getting to the local tenant coordinator or the local operations person, and those, I'm not naming any names, but those are the ones that are the most difficult. And the other thing that I would say is difficult, maybe this is the next question, but is if You have put in multiple drawing sets for landlord review, and we do. We send out our concept the minute we get it, before we even give them any official drawing review package, that they don't comment on something, and then you're in the field, and they're like, oh, you can't do that. I need you to tell me that up front. So different experiences with every different landlord.
Okay, good. All right. So now let's bring in, as Spiro was talking about, so we look at, from our standpoint, we have 2 clients in every single project, virtually every single one. We have our brand, our tenant, Dior or RH or Golden Goose or Armani or Gucci, but then we're also in another person's building, which is a landlord. So we are constantly, as you said, in the middle, because a landlord saying you can't do this, and our clients saying you do that, and we're constantly in that middle. So my question is, what can we do as an industry, because it becomes better for everybody, to improve that process earlier on, and how much are you, particularly you retailers, willing to engage a contractor in, as Spiro mentioned, earlier in that phase in order to get all the parties together? So I'd be curious what your experience of that and what you're hearing. We talked about this, I think, briefly. I think actually we're talking about with our group from I guess I shouldn't say the retailer, another retailer last night who said from a corporate standpoint, they're having trouble with that because a contractor can't get involved until everything else is done. So I'd love to maybe get your thoughts on that from both landlord and brand standpoint.
I have a suggestion for the retailers. You're not going to like it. Pre-con. It's right before pre-con. No contractor will say no to review the drawings, review the lease, go to the building, see if the power is sufficient, if the sewer is sufficient,
We
and
love
everything.
that. We do call
They
it free con.
will come in.
Under
It's
certain
going to be free con.
circumstances.
Free construction comes right before pre-construction services, and it would be a great asset, and it will be a fantastic service that's going to happen free and earlier.
Done. Next question.
So that also, I think, varies wildly from project to project. If we have established relationships with GCs, we will often call on them and say, hey, what do you think of this craziness we're about to embark on?
Do you know any good ones, by the way?
Oh,
Contractors?
I'm not so much, no. Joking. So if it's a really big flagship, we will absolutely be doing a pre-con stage. We'll be bidding out the pre-con separate from the actual job. We tend to only do that on flagships, though. And the one issue is the compliance that is coming down on us in the past 5 years, not even from the brand, but from the parent company, is wild. Sure. So it is sometimes difficult to share information without getting to the actual bid phase. So that's kind of unfortunate, but it's back to what you're saying about relationships, creating relationships. We have lots of good relationships and, lots of great partners that are really willing to have those conversations because we're all going to be better for it in the end.
Yeah, the idea is just to find one landlord and one contractor who I like and just have them go buy all our buildings and then we'll do it that way. But we talked a little bit about it earlier, Spiro and I, that my current company, has a very particular way of doing business, both externally and internally, especially internally. And, trying to bring best practices from prior experiences forward is not the easiest thing in the world, but one of the things that we've talked at length about in our group is this idea of whatever, anybody has a different word for it, but you know, a kickoff call or a pre-call with all partners. We're not very good at that. And a lot of the times it's because we haven't necessarily selected who the partners are going to be, but we're gonna try to get better about that. But I think it's sounds super basic, and sometimes everyone's searching for these sort of innovative solves, but I don't think it's any more complicated than everybody who's going to be involved in the project gets in a room or on a phone before it starts, and you walk through it. And I think we've gotten in this fast-paced world that we're living in, and we've just kind of gotten away from that and trying to do too much with too little, and we sort of need to slow down and you know, bring partners in earlier.
Well, I will say, our experience, just kind of speaking directly, with the procurement process with RH was uniquely different than virtually every procurement process we've had with any retailer. And I think
super amazing, right?
I think I'm allowed to share it, but you'll fire me if I just blow it. But they went through an extensive interview process to hire a construction manager, and an RFP process. And then they actually came to our office and visited our office and met with our team. They then went back to San Francisco, and a couple weeks later, another team came and visited us at our office again and met with our team. They finally made the selection, and then they said, before we go to the next step, we want your team to come to San Francisco. And we spent 3 days at your headquarters meeting more of the team and learning more about their vision, their process, their checklists, and so on and so forth. So it was before a shovel was in the ground or before a single thing was bid on the project, okay? So we've never experienced that with we do that with developers and other types of projects. We've never done that with a retailer before. It was very, very unique. We found it to be, great. We'll talk about the next step later about they changed their minds like the weather in Michigan, but but that's a different issue. But complete opposite to typical with many other retailers, which is what they refer to as the design, bid, build. Right? So my question is, and I think you maybe mentioned it, Alison, is that really coming, is that design, bid, build just kind of coming from, call it corporate, that's just policy and that's how it has to be done?
Absolutely. And to be fair again, we're a zone office, right? So we are not in the headquarters. And when I came here, it was a huge shock to me because I've always been in charge and in control. So, and then it's a different culture as well. So it's definitely central. And beyond that, we also have the additional fun thing of being part of a huge, huge parent company as well.
Great, okay. So, Spiro and everybody, there's been this trend. It was actually maybe mentioned earlier about somebody asked the question. Actually, you asked the question, quite frankly, about retailers now looking to actually own their real estate. That's definitely a new thing. There was a lot of articles been written about it. So, if you can talk about the trend, what are you doing? What are you seeing, Spiro, with some of your clients or your involvement that you're willing to share? RH, I know that sometimes you own or don't own. And Dior, I'd be curious what you guys are doing. So, Spiro, kind of tell us what you're seeing and what you're involved in that you're allowed to share without getting in trouble.
Yeah, it's definitely a trend. We see it, we know it. It's happening. It's happening a lot here, especially with some numbers that are really crazy. I'm sure we all read the paper. But RH and us have partnered in a tremendous amount of properties, both in the US and in Europe, and it's working. And you have the development, because a retailer is it worth it starting a development division, really, and how many, and why? So that partnership actually proves something that works, and you get a development company partnering with a retail company, and they both own. The development company manages the actual property and the whole development process, and the ownership is is from both parties. It's working, it's smart, and it's good for us as a developer to be partners in the real estate ownership with our tenant. It's fantastic, and it works for the retailer.
Why does it work for RH? So I can see how it works for a landlord. That's an easy one, right? My tenant that's paying rent is also a partner, so they're incentivized to pay the rent. So
it's a unique situation. It's the only, Spiro and his company are the only company we've ever done that with. It's a very unique joint venture partnership where it was not just about, unlike our more traditional acquisition strategy, which I'll talk about in a second, this was not just about securing premium real estate for the brand, but this was about making an investment in a larger real estate development program with a very established premier developer, particularly in a market that we were targeting. And that partnership relationship worked in that particular market so well that we decided to expand it. We are not we're not actively, nor have we since that time, seeking additional joint venture partners. So I think that we keep it close. They're part of the family now, and that's sort of, we don't like to expand the family too big. But we do buy our own real estate elsewhere, but it has less to do with about wanting to own it in the long term, and it's more about that might be the only way to get the site we want. Because the few things that we've purchased over the last number of years, most of them we sell and lease back. So it's about securing the site and or building that we want, building it, and then recouping our capital investment through a sale, and then setting our lease terms for the long term. Because unlike what LVMH has done with their very specific real estate arm of the company, we're not buying, we're buying sites where we're building our own building. We're not part of another building most of the time, and so that real estate is it can't really live on after we're gone as something else, so we really don't want to own it, if that makes sense.
What for us has made us better. Has made us better because we live now their day. We walk in their shoes. We understand their struggles as a retailer, what they go through, and has made us better than I hope that's the case as landlords and as partners, because we feel their pains, and I think vice versa as to what's happening with, the financing and the loans and all the stuff that we kind of pretend that the day is great, but some days are not that great. And I think it has worked out really well as a partnership.
Dior, Alison, you guys are doing something.
It's back to the LVMH thing. So Dior is too small to really own their real estate. However, here's the great side of working for a giant global parent company, is that LVMH is buying a lot of property. We become their tenant. It's good for us because it's probably a better market rate than we might get from a different landlord, and it's great for them because it's a wonderful real estate development. It's also El Catterton, who's linked to LVMH, who can develop a new property outside of Montreal and say, hey, Dior, Fendi, Givenchy, you're going to be our first luxury tenants here. So there's a very nice symbiotic relationship between the parent company and the brands. But most of the brands are too small to own their own real estate.
And is the real estate ownership philosophy only, and I'll call it premier markets, that if it's not a premier market, we don't want to own the real estate? Is it
So I can only speak to the Americas. I don't really know what LVMH does outside, but yes, it is in New York City, Beverly Hills, unless it is a like shopping center development opportunity.
Okay, so let's talk a little about the future. So what does what are your firms, your brands looking at? What's 25 look like, 26, 27? You guys got to be planning years in advance, whether it be leases, construction, redesign of stores. So if you can share whatever you're willing to share about what 25, 26, 27 looks like. If you're looking to expand, slow down, change, what's on the horizon?
So for Dior, my life there has been really interesting because it was really small and unexposed in the Americas in 2017, and they brought in a team of people to really grow it, go into secondary markets, develop a men's business that didn't exist before. That's kind of what we did up until the pandemic, and then we're calling 2025 is Dior the year of the Americas or something like that, when we're opening new freestanding flagship in Beverly Hills with a yet to be revealed amazing restaurant, opening 57th with the first Dior spa in the United States, and we're working on a couple other food and beverage properties. So it's back to that experience, and this will be the greatest development period in the history of Dior in the Americas. And then after that, we will really be into a lot of the markets. There won't be, we're missing Palm Beach. We need Palm Beach, maybe something out east. But other than that, then it's gonna go back and bring everything up to the current brand standard. So we're in this kind of amazing moment in the next year or two, and then it will be trying to just bring everything up to the standards and keep it up to the standards.
Yeah, I would. That's exciting.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
Daunting.
Yeah, don't do the restaurant.
I've said it, but no one's listening.
Have them call me.
Just saying.
So since the transformation to what we used to be to what we are now, which took place around 2011, was when we first started opening the big galleries, we've managed to do anywhere from 2 to 4 a year. They're super complex. They take a long time. This year, we'll open 8, helped by international. And that pace, we'd like to be 10 to 12 going forward. And so we have right now, after the 8 this year, 25, 26, we have almost 30 active projects in the pipe, both domestic and international. And that's the clip we're trying to go for.
Domination,
baby.
Domination, okay. So I want to open up the questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, any of the above and all the above.
Criticisms?
Oh, come on.
I have a story. My lovely wife always complains that I don't do much around the house. And one day I decided to wash her golden goose with Oxy and clean all the dirty stuff, and I put it back in her closet. And it's all over Instagram. That's me. I did it.
That was not a good day at the house.
No, and I thought I was doing something really good. There we go.
Oh, wait, I'm coming to you. Hold on.
Is there a possibility that somewhere down the way we will see the GC saying, yeah, whatever you need? And the client, retail, the brand is like, okay, how much is that gonna cost? Could it be as simple as that? Like the master architect, the master designer, the team, whatever, comes in and says, yeah, well, this is what we need, but we also need to change our minds.
I don't understand the question, but the answer is always yes. And this is how much it's going to cost, and this is how long it's going to take.
But could you put together a proposal based on that, and then would the brands be willing to pay for it? Because it seems like another really super simple way to deal with it.
I can tell you that Paris would never allow that, not in a million years. And that's back to compliance again.
I think we just, I'll speak for myself, obviously, that we tend to live in an alternate reality because we love to say that we have a schedule and we have a budget, but we really don't.
Well, they have an unlimited budget, but then they exceed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really more about, and I think I know where you're kind of going with the question, which is, how do you create a partnership with any contractor or vendor, service provider, where that allows for innovative change post CDs, right? Like, and I don't know the answer. We spend a lot of energy trying to figure that out, but we are a design till the door is open company. And that's part of the magic that makes RH what it is. So you don't want to take that away, but it also is not efficient, it's not fast, it's not cheap, and it frustrates partners. So I don't know. I mean, that's our big, if anybody has the answer to that, or, come on out and see me. But yeah, we struggle with that.
I mean, the answer to the question is really, as you guys do, it's just working a shoulder-to-shoulder open book arrangement. And that's how our arrangement is with RH and sometimes in other projects. When it's a shoulder-to-shoulder open book, then what you just described is we're on the same, there's no hidden agenda. Anything else out there? I think there's a question here from a lovely lady.
I actually thought that your point about luxury brands being slow on technological adoptions to be really interesting and thought-provoking. So I'd love to hear, when you're planning on your new stores, what technological adaptations or innovations are you bringing in, or are you seeing are making the biggest difference in the customer experience? And what are you driving on the brand side? And then on the landlord side, is there technology that you're bringing in to the buildings that you're kind of offering or being asked to offer to the tenants?
Apple Pay. We're bringing Apple Pay.
That's a really important one.
Super innovative, yeah.
I mean, again, we're so late to the game. It's really sad. One thing is, though, Dior didn't even have e-commerce until 2018 or 19. So one thing is that now we have linked e-commerce to every sales associate in the store. So if a customer is interested in something and either we don't have it, or we could try to find it for them, or now the sales associate has it in their hand, so they can say, well, if you want that, what about this? And I can get it to your house in a day. They've also set up, shipping for e-commerce out of stores. We also have this really cool thing where if you want something on e-commerce, we can have this person come in a bespoke suit and deliver it all beautifully packaged, all through, we're so late to the game, but it is coming and it is helping to reinforce luxury client experience. And now you can stay with your glass of champagne and use your credit card there instead of someone going 5 miles away to the back of house to do it. But again, it's thank goodness we're there, but it is just so slow.
Hi, a question for RH. So you mentioned that there's a discrepancy between your core customer and your food and beverage customer. How do you account for that moving forward for your strategy for 10 to 12 stores a year?
I don't know. Can you answer that for me? Because
Stumped him.
yeah, the head of RH Hospitality asks me that all the time. He's like, "Hey, Steve, can you kind of give me all of the restaurant sales around the gallery location?" Because they historically don't have a say, right? Nobody has a say, actually. And that's beautiful for a real estate guy, but I try to engage operations and everybody about markets, but now I'm trying to, we're sort of, whether we want to be or not, we're a legitimate restaurant company, $160 million restaurant company today. So we have to think about those things, like what kind of clientele is this restaurant going to draw if it's not going to just be customers of the gallery, which it is not. And that's not a bad thing. And so I don't really know, but it's not a, is anybody here in the restaurant business? All right, you're lucky.
A lot of smart people in here.
Well, smart, yeah, super smart, yeah.
It's a really hard business.
But it's magical all at the same time, and so we're never going to abandon it. I just think that the cost to build our building is so significant that a market has to be able to generate a certain amount of top-line volume to support an F&B program going forward, regardless of who we think is going to walk through the door. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's my best shot.
Steve, follow up on that question. How do you weigh the difference between the design intent on what you want in one of your galleries to the ROI that you'll get on the back end? I mean, we made some of the jokes of what we've done in changes at the the 11th hour. That's got to be a difficult conversation at times, right? To see, is the end client really going to see it in the same light that RH sees it?
Yeah, bingo. We sort of don't care. Because it matters to us, right? It matters to us. But you're right. At some point, it's just diminishing return. And you can only spend so much money. And if Gary, our CEO, Gary Friedman, were sitting here today, he said, we've always found a way to monetize remarkable. We've never found a way to monetize unremarkable. And we're no longer a small shop, mall-based tenant building 4,000 square foot stores on 10-year leases, right? We're placing 20, 25, 30, 40-year bets with big, expensive buildings. And if it takes a little longer for us to get our money back, but we're proud of what we created, we're still gonna do it.
Do I have permission to share the Birmingham story? And I'm serious. Do I have permission to share what happened in Birmingham?
But not the story, just the building?
Yeah.
Or are you going to talk about the story?
You can share the story,
Okay.
yes.
So the short story is that we were blessed to be engaged to hired to build their store in Birmingham, Michigan, and it's a 4-story, including the rooftop, typical restaurant up top and a whole rooftop, 1-level underground parking, urban project, and we have the lower level, below grade parking lot in, garage in, the stair tower, the elevator tower in, and we get an email on a Friday that says stop construction. And on Monday, they emailed us a rendering of a completely different building. Like if I showed you the rendering of two buildings, there's nothing that was similar other than the fact they were located in Birmingham, Michigan, and on the same site. And they said, that's what we want to build. And they had to go through complete site plan approval, and they literally then hired us to remove and not demolish.
There's the render.
Right, that's the rendering of the
The
new one,
renders on the screen.
right? Demolish the stair tower and elevator tower. And the rumor going around the Detroit metropolitan area was that Sachse Construction installed the stair towers and the elevator tower in the wrong location.
I didn't have anything to do with it.
Right. So 10 months later, we resumed construction for the completely new building. So I will say it was the first time that that's ever happened. But when I want to pile on, and when I asked the question to our project manager, I said, does RH really believe they're going to sell one more couch because of that? And their comment was, it's a much bigger question, much bigger answer. And it's exactly what you said. They say it's not about selling that couch next year. It's really about the long-term vision of their image and what they stand for and what the brand is and what the trend is, as you said in our roundtable, of leading in a trend and looking forward as to what it's going to be. And the cost and the timing of it was not something that was in the decision-making process. The decision-making process was way bigger than the cost of that particular item. And that's exactly what they told us. So, so we said exactly what Kelly told us to say was, yes, okay, what do we got to do to make that happen? But it was definitely a first. I will admit that. It was a first. Anything else, or we're done? I got the thing? Okay. So thank you so much, and thank you to our panel and everybody that joined us. So time to party.